these two kind of like come in hand. So first one is removing underperforming tenants. So we touched on that kind of with retail about getting ones that like maybe take away from the complex, for instance, to say like you got a little friendly neighborhood center, having like, I don't want to banalize, someone who's covered in tattoos, like a tattoo parlor might not fit in with the demographic if it's an older kind of clientele going there, or a brothel or whatever it may be. Or even just a tenant that like is kind of causing dramas with the other tenants. Like that can be, if that causes bad culture in the area, that just kind of stops rental increases, the kind of vibe of the area. So removing a tenant is actually quite important. Same thing if you've got like an industrial tenant. If it's a tenant who's slowly slipping away, not paying rent on time, things like that, why are you going to keep them long term? Like you might think, oh, I'm going to help them out. It's better having some rent's better than none. But most businesses, and you'll actually attest to this, Jared, that are going downhill rarely pull themselves back. Like, so it's just a slippery slope that you get into. Sometimes it's better, like if the market's growing, especially industrial, the last couple of years we're seeing 30% rental increases. If they were struggling a couple of years ago, like they're going to be able to handle the 30% rental increases. So once they kind of break something in the lease, sometimes it's worth, without sounding ruthless, cut your losses, put in a new tenant. The vacancy rates are tight enough, and get the performing tenant that way.
Absolutely. I like that. Yeah. The image of a complex can completely change based on the culture, like you said, based on one tenant. And it can really affect everybody else around that whole, precinct, I guess.
Yeah, we had one recently. We found a shop in like a retail complex, and the complex was pretty nice. But the butcher shop was like really grubby and kind of dirty looking. And it just made the whole complex feel bad. Like you kind of look at it and go, this is a grubby complex now. Whereas if it was like a really nice, fresh looking butcher shop, that would actually bring a vibe to the area and to bring the foot traffic and bring it up. So this is why retail is a bit of a harder game. You have to understand business as well as kind of like demographics of the area and what makes a successful business. Whereas industrial and office, it's pretty much a numbers game. Like you look at it and go, okay, what's a square meter rate? What can I get? I don't really care if my tenant's a panel beater or a spray painter or a fabricator or whatever it is. Again, case by case. If you've got like an industrial complex, like the homewares industrial complexes where they've got like the fantastic furniture and the Bing Lee and the good guys, you wouldn't go put in a manufacturer in that one, for instance, because that's not going to add to it. So still sticking with that, but for most mum and dad's budgets, you're just going to buy in either like a distribution type industrial complex or like a service-based one, and then the tenants that come in, you'll kind of choose from there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that you hit on a really good point. I just want to go back on that. Is like we're in a point in the market too where vacancy rates are low. So if you are listening to this and you're considering, look, my tenant's not great, like it's better to change a tenant in a stronger market than wait and then no one knows what the future holds, but you don't want to be shifting tenants by force in a market where it's not as strong as it is today. So I think that's a really good point, Steve. And
I don't want to sugarcoat commercial. Vacancy rates will go up. Like they're at all-time lows now at like 0.5%. But generally what happens when you've got really, really tight markets, and the same thing happens with residential, developers start going, oh, there's a huge demand here. People are going to pay a price increase. And that's when they start buying land and building more stock. So more stock will come to the market. I don't know whether that's in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, or 15 years' time. But at some point it'll climb. And that's the cyclic nature of property. So getting a good tenant now and a long-term tenant is always valuable.
Yeah, I love it.